morning, everyone, and thank you all so very much for joining us. It's really an honor to be here for part two of our Spring into Wellness workshop series. So again, thank you, Sadea, for inviting me. Also, thank you, DreamYard family. It's really great always being with you all. So my business is Right Moon Healing Arts. It is a umbrella of sorts of wellness ventures. So we have our plant medicine and herbalism side of it, also doula and birth work. There's Reiki work and also some art therapy through my teaching artist efforts, as well as one-on-one with my clients. And so that's a little bit about what I do on the Right Moon side. And tonight we are focusing on the plant medicine end. So it's really great that you are here. We have our beautiful plant. I'm actually pointing to a window if you didn't know. Our wonderful plant allies who are blooming and blossoming for us, right? Who are just, wonderful on all ends. So a lot of times especially if we have a yard, being in New York, but even just walking down the street, we see a lot of plants, but especially like as a homeowner that we look at as a nuisance or very invasive. And some plants are invasive, but I think it's always important to think about why is a particular plant growing where it is. Oftentimes it is growing so much because we need it, in these individual spaces. So we're going to be covering a few things that you may be familiar with, that you may have seen before, or don't know anything about at all. So wherever you are in any of that equation is totally fine. One thing that we're going to go over is to recap from our first part in the series is nettles. So specifically stinging nettles. And as I say that, if you feel comfortable coming off of mute or even in the chat, what comes to mind when you hear stinging nettles, or if you have any familiarity with it or have used it before? Let's hear that like a little bit if you want to say it out loud or in the chat.
When I think of nettle, I don't know about stinging nettle, but when I think of nettle, I think of a tea that I use to help deal with allergies.
Beautiful. And it's so great seeing you, Austin. So yes, tea, infusion. So actually in the first workshop, we discussed, as Austin mentioned, it's wonderful use for allergies. So this is the season, if you have flare-ups and hay fever and sinus issues, nettle is a beautiful, beautiful ally. So just for the sake of not having to switch the camera so much, I'll just do it here if you all don't mind. I have a little bit of stinging nettle in this vessel. All right. And so we specifically spoke about making infusion. So yes, a tea that you would drink internally. And it's just really beautiful for those times of inflammation, but especially related to the season. And one thing that we really didn't speak about was its topical use. I think today is a really great way to speak about that. So just as it's working internally to bring down that inflammation, it does the same for the hair. So some people actually make a rinse out of it. So you can, just as you're making an infusion to drink, you can make an infusion and use it as a rinse in your hair. It said that it keeps the hair black, but it's also very beautiful for dandruff. So even in these transitional periods and times, dandruff can actually come up a lot too. So because we're talking about the difference in temperature, even if you're traveling, I know for myself, when I'm traveling, especially to warmer places and climates, I usually have some of that irritation and dandruff coming up. So nettles would be great for that. And one way that we can, outside of using it as an infusion, so today we'll also be focusing on making infused oils, okay? So with your infusion, you're simply taking a few teaspoons, all right? I'm a little heavy-handed, and I also do what we call our folk method of measuring, our ancestral method, where it's like, okay, baby, that's enough. All right. So I'm not always measuring to a T, but when I'm making in big batches, large amounts, I do have to bring some scales out and be a little more precise. But this also goes to the point that all of our medicine, as we use it, as we incorporate it, as we work with it, it has to be intentional. So even when you are creating this for yourself or your loved ones, you're being intentional with it, and you know what you need. You know, maybe I'm feeling it. And the plant will also tell you as well. They'll tell you like, no, you need more of me, so you can be a little heavy-handed here. But I say all that to say that there are many different ways that we can use it. And so yes, the infusion is where we're using the water and we're drinking it internally, or you're using it topically. And you can also put it in an oil. So we will have a more in-depth way of how we do that in just a second. But I did want to feature nettles again today because I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful plant that we can use. And it's edible too. It's one of our, like lots of plants, one of our first forage plants that has lots of magnesium, calcium, vitamins A, D, so very rich and so very nutrient dense. So when you do find nettles wild, you want to be careful of how you harvest it because it does sting. That's a part of it in its name and doctrine of signatures. It does sting you, which has its own benefits. If you have arthritis, you may want some more blood flow in a particular part of your body. So there is a way that people actually place nettles on their skin to bring up the blood flow. But you want to be careful about that. You don't want to eat it raw until you blanch it a little bit to get those fingers off, because your mouth will be, on fire, and we don't want that to happen. So what scent does nettle leave? It's very, for me, it's very grassy and earthy, but like not overwhelmingly so. We have some plants that are more on the aromatic end, and they have those volatile oils that come up, and also that we don't want to lose when we are infusing them. So like when you're making a tea, you want to be careful and mindful to place the saucer over your cup or over the pot that you may be infusing it in. But it's very mild. It's a very mild scent, and even when you eat it, it's a beautiful alternative, or it complements spinach as well. But I like to say that it tastes like spinach, like it has a very nice green, nutrient dense taste, if that makes any sense. So you can use it in stir fries, you can put it in soup. You can eat it raw after you've blanched it to get the fingers off. And yeah, so we have our beautiful ally nettles there. And they're all over. They're sprouting all over, doing their thing. All right. And so I'm sorry, you all. I saw some questions come up in the chat. Some of them I was able to read. I'm going to check it really quickly. Apologies if I missed your question. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So, and so Daya, if you would like to, if you all would like to see what fresh nettles look like, what it looks like, we have a slideshow that shows it. So maybe we can see the first image. Yep, so we have Urtica dioica, and the process of actually putting it on your skin is called urtication. So that's when people are using it to bring up that blood flow. If you don't want that, it does pack a punch and it does sting, but you'll be fine by the next day, day and a half. It really does its job. All right. So that's stinging nettles. Maybe will we do a run through of the herbs, Ardea? Go to the next plant, or would you like me to? So we have plantain leaf. All right. So I just want to show you that before we speak on it. Okay. So we have Plantago major, We have calendula that we'll be speaking about tonight, Calendula officinalis. We also have lavender, Lavandula angustifolia. So these are the botanical names next to the common names, right? And I believe that is it. So these are some photos we'll go back to when we get to our salve making part. Okay. All right, everyone. So as you know, because if you have registered for this, you should know or have seen the description where we gave you some info on what we'll be doing in terms of infusing our oils. So we are using dried herbs. So you saw in the slideshow where we had some of the fresh ones shown, but I want to show you them in the dried form. So here is our plantain, no relation to the banana or the fruit. We have our plantain leaf. We have calendula, beautiful, beautiful calendula. All right, now I have confetti over my keyboard. All right, and on the part, we'll actually be using essential oils. So this particular one, I've added lavender in it, but if there's any oil that you are called to or calls you, feel free to use whatever is best for you. So I am featuring some lavender. This is lavender and tea tree. So we actually have a double hitter. All right. So just quickly, again, if you want to come off the chat or even add, come off of mute or even add in the chat, has anyone made an herbal oil before, like an infused oil, or do you use it in any type of way? An oil form of your beautiful herbs.
I've attempted to make some oils, but I didn't look up any tutorials. I was just trying to go with intuition alone. But you did mention earlier about covering it, so I'm sure that's what happened. I didn't have a cover for it. I was just sort of letting it boil, and like the entire room smelled delicious. I was trying to make like lemon oil with like the lemon peels, but with like orange as well. I added some cloves and cinnamon, but yeah, that didn't do so well. And I know it's a matter of like being patient and watching over it. But yeah, I attempted, but I failed at that one.
No worries, no worries. So pick yourself up and try again, right? It's all a process. So thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing that. I really appreciate it. So when I was speaking earlier, I did mention the volatile oils, which are a part of every plant. So especially, and I was actually specifically speaking about an infusion. So the tea that we actually make with our herbs. So with it being infused in water, that steam brings up those nutrients in the plant. And that also includes those volatile oils, which are very nutrient dense themselves and beneficial for us. So when that's happening, even if you're making an infusion, you do want to cover it. So for your teas, you want to cover it and make sure those oils aren't coming out. Now, in terms of you making your own, it sounds like you were maybe doing, I don't know if you were using like a crock pot. There are different methods that you can use, but you don't want to like really cook them. You want to let them, actually, if you do use that method, some people watch it for like a whole day on very, very low heat, sometimes 2 or 3 days. So today I'm actually going to speak about making a cold oil, right? So like a cold infused oil or solar infused oil, where we will let it sit and do its thing. But we'll also be working with it, setting our intentions with our oil. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of pointers on like what to do or even a different method. And really quickly, I want to read the chat because I know there's something new that came up. Any oils we're using? Yep. Thank you so much, Austin. So Austin asked if there are any oils we should avoid using, and he specifically mentions essential oils. So essential oils are the concentrated form of these plants. So yes, they definitely pack a punch, and you should never apply essential oils directly to your skin because it can burn it, right? So you always want to use a carrier oil. So when speaking about carrier oils, one of my tried and true and cost effective, most importantly, favorites is olive oil. And so even we know in the Swana regions and Mediterranean regions how olive oil is used. We also know just even the nutrients that it has and how it's emollient and beneficial for the skin. But I love to steep my herbs in olive oil. So other herbs that can be used, excuse me, I don't know if I said herbs or oils, but other oils that can be used are, I use baobab, or we say baobab oil, jojoba oil, sweet almond is also a favorite, but I would typically add those because some of those are actually on the pricier end as well. I add those in a little later, like after we start straining these, our own infused oil, right? So I'm not sure if any of you have the any of the herbs or plants that we'll be using. If you don't, it's okay. So you can take notes and maybe play around with this later and experiment. I hope you do. But if you do have them, please join me. All right, you can join in creating, right? And so I want to mention as well that we are using dried. You want to make sure your herbs are dried with oils because all herbs have some content of moisture, right? Or water content. And what we know is water and oil do not mix. And even if you're putting the two together, you run a very high risk of your oil going rancid or mold forming if your herb isn't completely dry. So there are some people that actually just wilt their herbs a little bit and they'll be okay. But especially when I'm making it in batches, I try my best to make sure the herb is fully dried, okay? So plantain is another one of those beautiful wild medicinal plants that it's everywhere. We love to mow over plantain. We feel like it's in the way. Get out of my yard, but it's there for a reason. All right. So it has very a very beautiful vibe, you know, and also with it impart with us internally and also spiritually. So I'm going to speak on that a little bit. So we have that plantain has a lot of silica, there's protein and fiber. So when we're taking it internally, there are ways that you can create an infusion, especially when you have wounds or fractures where plantain is really beneficial in that way. If you are foraging or eating it, you can simply wash it. It doesn't have any fingers in it. You don't have to blanch it. It can be used in a salad, very high levels of like vitamin K, lots of magnesium as well, similar to the nettles, all right? And on the end of our topical use, it's very beautiful for stings. So spider bites, bee stings, fire ants. Actually, you can take a leaf and chew it. So you want to kind of break down the cell walls and you can apply it directly to that particular bite. All right. So that's one way that you can actually use it right from the source, like from the ground. Chew it a little bit and you can put it. And so this, again, we'll be putting into our oil. And so this is one of our indigenous first foods as well. And when we're speaking about foraging, plantain has a very long history on Turtle Island. So we're giving props, especially with our Navajo people who just had a very beautiful use of this. And also our ancestors, I'm speaking about myself, my African ancestors, their knowledge of using this plant. So I'm just looking at my notes, making sure I don't miss anything for you all, because I do want to speak on the spiritual use. So I think it's very important that we talk about the ways that we medically use these plants, but also the essence of these plants and how, you know, our enslaved ancestors used it for liberation, to feed themselves, and also to just imbue themselves with great energy. So just as plantain can be used for those bites and snake venom even, you can look at it as spiritually on the end of removing venomous energy away from you or out of your life. And there's sometimes where we are jaded ourselves and we get, you know, like stuck in a rut, and maybe it comes out in our attitude or our emotions. But even if we just want to have like a sweeter part of ourselves and getting us back to our balance, like even when we are feeling venomous, right? So this is a beautiful way of like removing that, but also nourishing us. So it's not like stripping you of everything, because yes, healthy boundaries, but also giving us what we need, you know, like taking the venom out and getting us back to center, equilibrium. All right. So we have our plantain. I'm gonna briefly cover calendula, and then we're gonna mix them and add them to our oil. All right. All right. So calendula, also known as pot marigold, right? So we see these beautiful yellow petals, right? So calendula is very important and special because it's antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, like all of these antis, right? That really help our skin. So you all may have a cream that has calendula in it. There are some products that already have calendula oil or cream formulated into them, but it kind of is known as a standard skin herb, right? Because it's so emollient and it adds to our skin and our system in a beautiful way. And then speaking about the skin, right? Our skin is our largest organ. So it's really important for us to be thinking about the way that we consume, but also the way that we use things topically. I know for a long time, I'm even trying to be better with it now, using cleaner cleaning products, right? So less chemicals, but even those, just being very mindful about putting gloves on. I'm not the best, but everything that we touch, you know, is absorbed by our skin. Our kidneys go in overdrive, and liver goes in overdrive, trying to filter everything that we're ingesting, but definitely topically, because a lot of times we don't think about the harm of certain products or different things that we touch, but even environmentally that we can't even that we don't have control over how it does affect us, just on this outer layer that a lot of times we're like, we don't pay enough attention to, but it is our largest organ and everything comes through our skin, right? So this is one step in just a better addition, you know, in addition to our regimen of self-care, and also using better products if we aren't using them already. All right, so yeah, the calendula is great for our lymph nodes and just really clearing the body of toxins, but also nourishing, so adding it back in. We never want to, because we are like in a detox society where we're always talking about detox, I need to rid myself of this, but I think a better way of thinking about it is, how do we nourish ourselves? Like, instead of stripping ourselves so much and think of detox, which ways are we implementing better products, better food, herbs, all of these different things that really help us be a more whole person, right? So it does a beautiful job of doing that. It removes toxins, but it's not totally stripping us, right? All right. And so it has its own essential oils, and I feel like I've done a lot of talking. So also, if you all would like to join the chat or come off of mute, what energy are you feeling from calendula? Spiritually, what do you think it brings to us, that it imbues within us? What do you see when you're looking at this?
It's mad bright from what I can see.
Yep.
So if I had to take a guess, something bright, something maybe rejuvenating. energizing, maybe something like that. I just know it
Yep.
smells good, so I don't know a lot about it, but I feel like calendula always smells good, and that's what I appreciate.
Perfect. Perfect. Calendula brings joy. It reminds us to be joyful, cheerful. It's a perfect herb for grief, right? So even when we feel like we're in a dark place, calendula is a beautiful plant ally for us to remember our joy and also to bring it into our lives, right? So doctrine of signatures, right? The way that these herbs and plants, the way that they form, and sometimes in their formation tells us what they do. And so even with this bright yellow and gold, even it symbolizes that, and also abundance, right? So bringing in abundance into our lives. May we always have that. And lavender. Mama Earth is always on time. Always on time. Thank you for adding that to the chat.
We also had some sunny, positive vibes and protection for calendula.
And protection, yes. Yes, I see it. Awesome additions, everyone. So a little stronger than calendula in terms of its aromatics, and also its use as an essential oil is the lavender. I do have some buds, but all packed up in the back. All right. Antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, which is really beautiful because there are only certain plants that are just one or two of the other, but lavender really packs a punch, as Austin mentioned earlier about the essential oils, right? And so it's a stimulant as well and a tonic. And what do we know about lavender? Calming, yes. Yes, it's a very, helps me relax, yep. It's a very, and even then we're speaking on the energetic end and how we feel emotionally, right? So we even have some clues about what it does spiritually on those ends. And it smells good, it really does, right? And so physically it does the same thing. So when you have, let's say these different bites that may be coming up, especially during spring and summertime, or wounds and different things. So it cleanses that wound, it helps repair that skin and heal it. But it also does, just like your mind, it calms it down, it calms those tissues down, right? And it just really is beautiful for topical use and also internal. And then there's ways that you can even put fresh buds or even a mist, like on your bed sheet or under your pillow, different ways that you can do that. And it's also, someone mentioned protection for calendula, but lavender is also very protective. So even when we're thinking about the dreamscape and we want to, and maybe some of us may suffer from insomnia or just having some unpleasant dreams, lavender really helps us also ground and is protective in that dream space and scape. Right. Right. And so some of the indications is that it also, it calms the nerves, it clears heat. It's great for nausea, muscle spasms, hypertension, nervousness, different pains, all right, ways that we can use it topically, all right, flu viruses and other viral infections, and just a great way to relax and release, okay? So right now, I am going to mix our herbs together, and then I am going to let Sadea know when we're going to go to back to our slideshow. But first, I just want to demo how we'll be working with these. I'm going to switch my camera really quickly just to mix them. All right. So I'm just going right into it, everyone. And I hope you can see this okay. Let me see if I can get a little closer. And I'm just turning that calendula into that plantain. All right. And as we mentioned before, with our plant medicine and with everything we do, intention, is the biggest part of it. So this is a beautiful time to be setting your intentions. How do you want the plant to work for you? How can we also honor these plants through our use of them, through harvesting them, right? Making sure that we aren't over harvesting, making sure that we're taking just what we need, right, for ourselves and our family. All right. Maybe there's a prayer, a scripture, just some good thoughts and intention that you want to add into it while you do this. So I just wanted to show how I'm mixing that together. And I'm taking a clean, all right, a clean and dry because we don't want any water molecules, anything else, any foreign matter that may mess our oil up, right? So a clean 16-ounce jar. You are more than welcome to use a smaller one or whatever works best for you. All right, and I know you can't see that too much, but I'll bring it back into the camera in just a second. I'm filling it about, I want to say, a little over a third of the way. Yeah, a little over a third of the way. And so the reason why we're also doing that, being mindful of, sorry, everyone, I'm trying to center that for you and bring it down. Okay, like a little, I think it's a little better there. All right. A lot of herbs, especially dried, right, they will expand. So even when you make a tea, the leaves expand in the water. The same will happen when you put the oil over it. So you don't want to pack this super tight. And you also want oil. You just don't want oily plant matter, right? You want to be able to strain it and use the oil. All right. So I am going in with my beautiful olive oil. And so on this end of choosing your oils, you want to make sure if you're using olive oil, make sure that it's olive oil. You know, like there are a lot of blends out there. Labels can be very misleading and sneaky. But if you know, for cooking reasons and other cost-effective reasons, like you need to choose one, I totally understand, but I wouldn't do the, you know, there's a lot that, sorry, I'm just trying to get that in for you all. There are a lot of oils, especially olives, that are mixed with like a soya blend or just a lot of other like vegetable blends, but try to make sure you get like a pure cold pressed olive oil, okay? So we have that, right? That's just like an overhead view. I filled it to everyone. I'm trying to show this to you all without it spilling, but if you can see just the that top line, just the neck, right? The neck of the jar. Now actually go ahead and put the rest of this oil in it because you do want to leave a little bit of space. All right. Okay, so there I'm going to come back to the video really quickly to speak a little more, and then we're going to go through the slideshow where you all will see how to make a salve. So there's some people who say salve, and we cut that L out, and some people do say salve. There's no wrong way to do it. So that's just, oh, excuse me, to say it. That's just the way that we use this medicine topically, right? And so with this, here comes the lessons, the lesson, I'm mixed the two, the lesson in patience. So when you are steeping this oil, it'll be about 4 to 6 weeks. So this is a time, because it's doing the solar method, right? Nicole mentioned how she used some heat, maybe on a stove top. That is one method where you can like watch it all day and let it, I don't want to say brew because it's very easy to like burn your herbs, but just let it heat at a very, very low temperature, maybe like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but like the lowest temperature. And that's like an all day or 3-day method. I personally, like if you are just, you know, in a jam and you want to create something rather quickly, that is one method. But personally, I let it, you know, do its thing, right? All right, so over those weeks and day by day, if you are shaking this and letting those herbs meld with one another, you are speaking your intentions, you're giving thanks, you know, to these plant allies and what you'll be using them for. But also as a reminder, um, speaking out loud, like, why do you want to work with this plant? Why do you need it? How is it helping you? Okay. And so this is a beautiful beautiful time to just be connected with your plant medicine that you are creating. All right. So you're also going to label this. I have my labels in the corner. I think I say this at every workshop. Um, it's just really important because a lot of plant matter looks the same. And sometimes we're like, oh, I know what I made. I know what that is. And then when you make a lot of things and you're creating for other clients or even yourself or family, it's very easy to forget. You're like, okay, that looks like this, that looks like, you know, everything looks the same. So the key things are your date, what plants are in it, and also your menstruum. So in today's case, our menstruum is olive oil. If we were making a tincture, that menstruum, I typically use brandy to extract. So that menstruum then would be brandy, or if you use vodka, case may be, but you want to label it with the solution that it's in as well. All right. And so 4 to 6 weeks, y'all. All right. So the air is going to help us with just bringing up a few pictures of the meltdown method, making, and I will show you really quickly the salve, right? All right, so melting that down. All right, it's just my setup doesn't allow, so we're gonna see it through a slideshow. Okay, and in the meanwhile, I will answer some chat questions. A party that smells good. Is there a recommended technique for drying our fresh herbs? Yeah, you can actually, air or outdoors is always best, but I know with city living, that's not always possible. I think a great method is a cheap, clean, like old, like a window screen, because you want to think about ventilation. They are actually sold online. Actually, it's like herb dryers, but you can like do it for a fraction of the cost. So like a clean window screen and like letting it, you know, be spread out flat, making sure it has air coming from the bottom, from the top. If you don't have that, even just a plate will do, but making sure there's some kind of like airflow, you know, on whichever surface, and try not to stack your plant matter on top of one another. Like try to keep it, if you're foraging or harvesting anything, like in a flat, just like one single layer. All right, so because you want to make sure that everything gets good air to dry properly. Okay, so everyone, the photos that you are about to see are just for the meltdown method, or excuse me, or the meltdown part. If you are making a healing salve out of your oil, so you can use the oil as is. You can strain it with your cheesecloth. So right here is just you can use a medium to large size pot. If you have a double boiler, that's fine. This is like if you don't have one, you can use a saucepan or a pot, and then we'll put a bowl on top of it. And so we'll go to the next slide. All right. And so this is very like zoomed in, but this is, it's a white bowl that's placed on top of that. So in that saucepan or the pot that you use, you only need maybe about an inch of water, not too much. It doesn't have to touch the bowl that you'll be putting inside. So just that steam is what you want. All right. So this is our strained plant matter. Okay. And then we can go to the next. Our next. Okay, so this is actually some beeswax that we have here, and that's what's going to help it solidify, right? To give you that ointment or salve consistency. So case in point, beeswax is not vegan, but there are vegan wax options. Carnauba wax is one, and there are some other ones out there. So if you want a fully vegan product or ointment, then you can look into those. But this one right here is grated beeswax. All right. And so for these parts, you want to make sure. So this is about, I'm using about 1 ounce of the beeswax. All right. We can go to the next slide. Okay. So that oil in that bowl has heated up to a nice temperature. Again, depending on how high your heat is, it's very easy for your oil to start burning or boiling. You don't want that. You want it hot just enough to where those pellets will melt. And I prefer to use grated or beeswax pellets just because they do melt down quicker, because there are shaved blocks. And maybe if you're making bats of this, you may need a block, but the grated one is just fine. And so I also have these dowels that I keep on hand, these clean wooden dowels. They're actually for like craft projects, but you don't want to use any metal to stir or any plastic to stir. So if you have like some wooden utensils that you don't mind using, that's fine. But since I also use essential oils, I typically do these dowels because I can throw them away. Some essential oils will stay on your utensils, right? And if you're okay, if you are using it for that purpose, that's totally fine. But if you're switching up the aroma, the scent, or different things, you know, that can play a part in it being absorbed in the wood. All right, so this is melted down nice, or it's getting there. All right, and we'll go to the next image. All right, so it's fully melted, fully melted. And at this point, I just use when I come back on the camera, I'll also show you just another jar that you can use. These are like 2 and 4 ounce tin canisters that I keep on hand, especially if I make products. You can find them pretty easily online, in stores. I actually love my local Dollar Tree and dollar stores. They have a lot of nice products, you know, that are great containers and, you know, storage things to use. All right, so this one comes with a nice lid to go on top. Some of them don't, that's why I mentioned that. All right, you're gonna let that cool down. Let it cool down, it's gonna get solid. One thing I wanna mention, as your beeswax or whatever type of wax you're using, as it's starting to melt, one way that you can check the consistency is to put a little bit on your skin, and you can see like how fast it starts like solidifying on your skin. And you can also put a little bit on like wax paper and put it in a freezer for like a more expedited process to kind of see like the consistency. Some people want it to be firmer and more solid. I like the in between where it's still like ointment based and still easily spreadable on the skin. So I don't put too much beeswax, but in these ingredients that you may already have in front of you, we have 1 ounce of grated beeswax into that oil that we strained. Okay, and we can go to our next image. All right, so here we have our buddy in the middle still doing its thing by cooling down, and we have some around it that are already cool, and they're firm for us, right? They've done its thing. And some of these, just to let you know, are like lavender sage. So on that end, the oil is, I usually use like what I'm showing you all. I do a mixture of plantain, calendula. A lot of times I also put comfrey plant into it as well. And then I put the essential oils. So some of them are lavender sage, and that's more for like the antibacterial, antiseptic vibe. And then this bottom right corner, as you can see, even color-wise, it's a little lighter. That's peppermint. So even when we're using these salves for, you know, topical use, especially if it's like pain-related, there are some people who want a more cooling sensation. So there's peppermint. Then I also have a ginger cayenne. So if you need that heat, but if you already have inflammation or heat in the body or in that surrounding area of that tissue, you don't want to put that on because it's actually going to burn and like bring up more heat. You want to let it heal, cool down, and maybe like in the healing process, if it is a like general inflammation or a sprain or a fracture, let it heal some, and then you can start introducing heat, you know, back into that area. But in those, you know, in that very first time of it being an issue or a sprain, you should be icing it, and also using something like more cooling or with menthol or camphor in it. So that's why we have that peppermint option. I believe that's it. All right. So everyone, I hope that slideshow was helpful in some sort. Apologies that I couldn't like do this for you, show you as we're speaking, but I also think for time's sake that it may have worked out better. I want to know, oh, it looks like a party in a jar. I love that. Okay, oh, that was for the other one. All right. But I still love the comments. Thank you all for adding and, you know, contributing to this conversation. I wanted to know, are there any questions about making the healing ointment or your healing salve or anything that has come up for you? Like, how are you feeling? What do you think in terms of experimenting with this? And I believe I consider myself to be frugal. So we're just buying the jars. Oh, so if I don't know if you heard me, but even these beautiful mason jars, a lot of them are at your local dollar stores, Dollar Tree. When I tell you I love getting supplies from there, but what you want to do, right, is make sure it is sterile, right? So even when I'm cleaning mine, I do it like in a hot water bath, and I sanitize it that way. And then even after that, I will wipe it with alcohol and let it air dry. And I just want to make sure it has like a full day or at least a few hours before, especially if I'm using oil, because again, you want to make sure that jar is completely dry. We don't want any foreign matter or any even like little molecules of water, because it can really throw off your oil, right? So it's definitely want more information, new to this. Okay, awesome. Thank you. You are most welcome. Thank you all so much for joining. So I feel like I've been talking a mile a minute. I'm sure I have been, but I do really hope that you receive, right? And receive something that is beneficial for yourself, for your family, and that it has been helpful. All right, you are so very welcome. Thank you all. Okay, someone's hand is raised. Okay, so if you want to, you can come off of mute, or if you feel comfortable typing it in the chat or any of those raised hands, feel free.
Okay, where do you buy that container that you mix the herb? No, the other one.
This container? Okay.
No, the other one, the higuero. We call it higuero in Spanish.
These?
Yes. Where do you find that?
Oh,
here.
I collect them. Yeah, I'm sorry. I collect them. So this some are from Jamaica, some are from Belize. Yeah, I actually collect them, but they're calabash.
Oh.
So can you say the name again? You say guero, see?
Higuero.
Higuero.
We call
yes.
that in Dominican Republic.
Right. So yes, the calabash, some are made out of coconut, but most of these are calabash. But I would say
it's like calabaza, but it's not. It is like calabaza, but it's not calabaza.
Oh no, not calabaza as in pumpkin, not pumpkin, but it is a gourd, like calabash gourd, but not calabaza for pumpkin. Yeah, but it is like a cousin, like in a gourd family.
But I think that
thank you for adding.
That thing that are outside of that, do you know that is a history, no? The thing that they put outside, yeah. The thing that they ¿cómo se dice dibujar?
Yes, are you saying the decoration?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That is a history.
Yes, so there's some. Yes, there's some names, even speaking on the calabash and gourd, the way that we eat, drink from them, use them as musical instruments. So you have the shekere, and there are also many different names of how we use these musically. And we also know musically to communicate. So especially speaking of the Maroons and our people who were high up in the hills using the drums to communicate like from bottom to top and vice versa, and also using the beautiful calabash to do the same. So yes, thank you so much for imparting that wisdom into our time here.
I was thinking that you find it here. I tried to find that.
Yeah, I would say maybe East Flatbush, the massive, our, West Indian massive, but also wherever you are. I feel some ethnic stores, if you may find some, or even local botanicas may have it. Yeah, it does. It's kind of hard to find, but I know they're around.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Likewise. Thank you. Yes, and also in the chat, Sadea has put maybe the African market in Harlem on 116th. I think that would be a great place to check as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Zaria. We really appreciate this night. Just to delve into salve, as you said, really focusing on our largest organ out here protecting us. So thank you so much for these wonderful recipes, and we hope to see the way that you use these herbs and these ingredients. And if you use this recipe really soon, or even if it's not soon, if you just make it, please send us pictures. We would love to see it. We'd love to highlight your work on the Instagram page and on our website. I've put my email address in the chat, and I will put it back as well, so that we can keep in touch and hear from you. And I know Zaria also has her contact info that she can put in the chat.
I will put mine.
Amazing products. Thank you, Austin. Thank you for joining us. And she'd love to keep in contact with you all.
Yes, so if you want to jot that down really quickly before leaving, feel free to do so, and we can stay, in touch on that end. Yeah, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Good night.
All right. Good night, everyone. Be safe.